Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Science of CX. I'm Steve Pappas, your host. We're always thinking about various aspects of business, not just experience, but how we experience business. One of the things that we've talked about in the past, but really haven't dug deep enough into it, is the area of influence. Today, we're going to talk about influence, and we're really going to dig deep because we have one of the best experts we could find. We have Elena Zucker on today. And I know you know the name. You've probably read her books. And if you haven't, you really should. So we're going to bring Elena on in a couple of minutes, but we're going to really talk about all the different aspects of, how does influence play a role in business? How does it play a role in your job, your career, customer experience, and various other aspects? So we've got a lot of questions to ask. So let's get started. And everybody, please help me and join me in thanking and welcoming Elena to the show. Thanks, Elena, for joining us today.
So nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, we've been looking forward to it. Quite honestly, this is one of those interviews that I know how busy you are. I know how many companies are asking of your time. And just the fact that you found a moment to join us is really our honor. So let me give folks a little bit about your bio first, if you don't mind, and
Sure.
then we'll get started. So I'm going to start with your bio here. And so Elena Zucker is president of Elena Zucker Associates, a management training and consulting firm based in Montreal. A seasoned businesswoman, educator, author, and consultant, Ms. Zucker's clients have included Fortune 500 corporations such as AT&T, American Express, IBM, Ogilvy and Mather, Bank of America, Sheridan, Syntex, and dozens of others too. Ms. Zucker holds a BA in psychology, an MA in management and organizational development, and is the recipient of the Alumni Achievement Award from NYU Polytechnic University. She also holds a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks in New York City. She's authored 11 books on leadership, management, assertiveness, influence, and communication. We're going to be talking specifically about the 7 secrets of influence, and that is a recent main selection of the Business Week Book Club. And it's been translated into 4 languages already. This is the Bible on influence. She's worked as an advertising manager, executive sales manager, and premium incentive creator. Well, that is a mouthful. We're going to talk about all of these things. So, Elena, thank you for joining us today. This is just a joy for me.
Well, for me as well, Steve, and I can practically wave to you because I'm here in Montreal, Canada, and you're there in New Hampshire. And I'm delighted to be here. I love talking about my favorite subject, influence, and very happy to entertain your questions.
Absolutely. Well, we know that your expertise is much more vast than influence, but I know that you have so much knowledge and influence. So we're gonna center on the influence side, even though I know we could probably
Great.
talk about anything in business together.
Okay.
So maybe what we should start is maybe with a definition. Let's define what influence is and why it's important, especially today.
Great question. Well, it's interesting because there are a lot of different definitions floating these days. For example, the word influencer, I have 400,000 followers on Twitter. That is not, how I define influence, which I'll get to in a minute. Mostly because these are not people that that know, like, and trust you.
Mm.
And it's very ephemeral. They can, disappear without notice. So I define influence, which Webster does as well, as the effect of an idea or person on the effect of others, on the values, the attitudes, and the behavior of others. Now, you can observe a change in behavior, right? If my attempt to influence you results in you taking a job, leaving a job, buying a home, etc., then that's observable. But I may have influenced your values and your attitudes, and I won't see that, but it's still influence. And interestingly, an archaic definition of influence, which I thought very amusing, says something like it's the ethereal flowing of a magical fluid from the stars said to change the behavior of people. And I thought that's very interesting because, like magic, really effective influence requires a lot of skill and practice behind the scenes. So it comes out looking seamless or effortless, but we all know that it's years of practice.
Right.
So I like to define influence as a skill or a set of skills that anyone can learn, practice, and master. Okay, so I hope that's clear.
Yep.
And then if I can elaborate a little more, if I may, because a lot of people conflate the idea of influence with manipulation. And if you think something is bad, you're going to unconsciously or consciously not want to do it. So, a lot of people in business come from other fields where the idea of manipulating people, is kind of abhorrent.
Right.
And so what I like to help people understand is that influence is a power, right? It's like electricity or nuclear power, and it can be used for good or bad. And so I like to look at it on two different dimensions. That is intent and effect, right? So intent is, if I was going to, be marrying, asking someone if they're going to marry my daughter, are your intentions honorable? Do you intend to give value or to teach me something or enhance my life in some way? So are my intentions honorable or positive? And then the other dimension is the effect. How do you, as the recipient of my influence attempt, do you feel like I've enhanced your day or your life? Have I taught you something? Have you had some benefit as the result of our interaction? And, only you can answer that. So if I can answer positive on those two dimensions, intent and effect. And the other thing is, I would say that it's transparent. So there's like nothing covert about positive influence. I've come to see you to, quote, tell you about my programs that I offer. Well, there's nothing covert about that. I'm telling you, I'm trying to sell you something.
Right.
Right. And the question is, do you think that the benefit that you or your company is going to get is equal to or better than what I'm asking you to invest in it?
That's great. That's great. I'm glad you defined and elaborated on that because, the term influence has really changed over the last 5+ years, especially with influencers, but also influence itself does have, both good and bad connotations.
It has a bad rap. And now, for example, in politics, so, we hear the phrase influence peddling.
Right.
So I always like to make that clear.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and let me ask you, is this something that has been necessary for all of time, or is this something that maybe has a more important place today?
Oh, very good. Yes, for a number of reasons. Number one, I just did a poll on
Okay.
LinkedIn, and people can just go there. My profile is just under Elena Zucker, and if you look at articles and posts about a week ago, I posted the results.
Okay.
So I put the poll in a few weeks ago, and then I waited for the results. And I asked people, what are your biggest challenges in influencing today? And the highest, the choices were influencing upper management, influencing peers, um, people to buy my products and services. And the highest polling choice was upper management.
Oh,
Now, I attribute this to a couple of reasons. So it is a very good question, because we are in, it's no surprise that we're in an era of change. And both the kind of changes and the magnitude and the pace of change have increased exponentially, if you will.
mm,
So the changes are just to, these are all in my book and in the program, but there's more competition out there
right.
for companies, for individuals. If you're within a company, you're even competing with your peers. And as people have said, for upper management face time, for resources, for budgets, right? So
Yeah.
that's one reason that people need influence. The other thing is we're all being asked to be more innovative. So innovation is no longer the province of the creatives, but we're all being asked to be more innovative, to come up with new ways of doing things, new cost-effective ways. And, I don't know about you, but I have a drawer full of dusty ideas that never saw the light of day because I didn't have the influence skills to persuade somebody to make it happen.
Okay.
Right. So that's another factor in the global work environment. And then there are other factors like just the sheer amount of information that we're all facing. And of course, technology. And one thing, Steve, that's become very much more apparent these days is that the IT people are one of the neglected, underserved populations. Because if you're an IT person, you don't manage people necessarily, you may have been left behind in the interpersonal skills training department. If you get promoted to supervisor or manager, you may get some of those management skills, or you may get more training in the technical expertise area that you're in.
Yep.
So we might find that people who are on teams and task forces and their background is technical, they don't have the interpersonal skills to even get yourself heard at a meeting.
Interesting.
And so, in fact, one time we did I've done a lot of these influence programs for tech people, and we called it Mastering Influence Skills for Technical Information Communication, or the acronym was MYSTIC.
Mm.
And it was very popular because, engineers are in some other level of, philosophical thinking, if you will. So in any case, this is the program, and I think why the tech people welcomed it is that it's very practical and very usable, because I wove together my many years of selling and marketing and advertising from, the real world of New York City
Right.
business.
Sure.
And then for a time, I was a professor of management at a university in New Jersey. And so I wove together my business and management experience and selling experience with with an academic discipline. And basically, I deconstructed the behaviors of successful influencers and then recompounded it, which is why tech people like the idea,
Okay.
right? Because I call it the technology of influence, right? Like,
Interesting.
what are the ingredients that successful people use? And
Right.
now I can teach those ingredients to anybody.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, let's talk about that. You talked about one gap area in business, being sometimes the technology folks. I mean, who does this really apply to? What level, what other areas? I mean, who should be learning this,
Good
and why is
question.
it important?
Well, I mentioned why it's important for all these reasons, but salespeople,
Yep.
uh, like the smart ones, um, are always wanting to learn to get that extra edge. The not so smart ones think they know everything,
Right.
right? So you can't really teach anything to your, Dr. Know-it-alls. But if you're, breathing and in the world today, you must keep learning. And so salespeople have been very receptive to this. In fact, I did a webinar recently called The Extra Edge for Salespeople. For sales and marketing management, they have a webinar series. So I would say salespeople, individual entrepreneurs. In fact, one of the things that Dennis and Dennis in Dubai, let's call him. I wonder if he uses that. He's the LinkedIn expert that I told you about.
Sure. Yep.
So one of the things we talked about is that once people become very proficient at creating their LinkedIn profile and they have, a very strong presence on LinkedIn and other social media, the desired goal is always stated as, I have gotten people to agree to a one-on-one meeting with me. Like, that's supposed to be the goal of
Mm,
why are you on social media? Because you want to cherry pick, those people who really could use your product or service. Now, if you don't have good influence skills, what are you going to do in minute one of that Zoom call?
right.
Right? So that's where influence skills comes in. And especially these days, because we're kind of limited. We're no longer going, driving 30 minutes to go visit somebody for the
Right.
half hour, right? We have to kind of make our case over Zoom. And so it's a lot harder to get cues from the person you're trying to influence.
Right, right. Well, let's maybe we can jump into it. I mean, if we talk about the influence skills that people need, and I'm sure they could read the book and get all the details out of it, but at a high level, what are the various things that you want to teach people? What these skills,
Right.
secrets, etc. Right?
Okay.
What are the things that we want to talk about?
Okay. So in a nutshell, and we don't have enough time for me to go into each
Right.
style, but my theory is based on 6 different influence styles, and each of the styles is a cluster of behaviors. So we start out in the course, and we're going to talk later on. There's a live course that people come to from companies for
Mhm.
one day. And now there is a new product. Excuse me, you might want to edit that out. Which is a 12 module online course. It's
Great.
an e-learning program. But
Excellent.
in any case, they all begin with an assessment.
Okay.
So, that's not an unusual format. And the assessment, if you do it live in the class, it's 55 questions. And I'm not a psychometric psychologist, and I don't even play one on TV. So I had to hire a team of these psychometric experts to create this statistically reliable questionnaire that determines, it's a self-paced questionnaire that people take. And what the result is that they learn over 6 different styles. What is your dominant influence style? And I'll just tell you like about one of them, for example. So there's one style called telling or analyst. So now this is self-selected. It's like, I'm not typing you. You've taken these questions and, this is what you reported about yourself. You
Right.
prefer A over B.
Yep.
And you're reporting what is your way of influencing people. Okay, so let's say the telling style, or analyst, it means that you like facts and figures, data, evidence. In a way, it's kind of a lawyerly style. And within this style are a number, as I said, a cluster of different behaviors that can be taught, right? So you learn your dominant influence style or styles. You may have more than one dominant one. And so what you learn is that that's your default.
Okay.
But then we have to say, so what? This is what you've been doing when you're on automatic. Up to now, you may not even have known that there were 5 other strategies. And so it's a little humbling for students, because while it's nice to know what your dominant style is, the more important learning is to use this knowledge, the spectrum of 6 different styles, as a prism, as better radar, the better to understand your customer.
Okay.
So once you understand these 6 styles, then you're using your 3D glasses, if you will, as a way to better understand the person or group that you're trying to influence. I mean, people ask me about groups. The same principle applies. You have to read the room.
Right.
Okay. So why is the book called 7 Secrets of Influence when there are only 6 styles? You may be asking.
I was going to, but go
You're
ahead.
going to. Because there's kind of an Uber principle, and that's the 7th secret. So 6 of the 7 secrets are the 6 styles. And then the 7th style is, let me have a drink. So people begin guessing what is the 7th secret. And what it is what I call a formula. That influence equals attentiveness plus flexibility. So what that means in practical terms is you need to develop the observation and listening skills, which every good salesperson knows. So the observation and listening, now you're looking at cues from the other person, and they will begin popping out at you as soon as you understand what the styles are within what the behaviors are within each style. And then you have to develop the flexibility
Okay.
to use the other 5 styles, which may not be in your comfort zone.
Right. Right.
And so that's what the training is all about. Because your default is just you're doing what you're doing on automatic, and you may not even know what you're doing. And so if you, let's say you had a meeting and you scored, you may not even have known, unless you had a replay. I know we don't like sports, but a lot of people do, where they do the replay of what was it in broken down tiny bits. What was it that you did that got you the good result?
Right.
Or if you bombed, again, if you did the replay, what was maybe one adjustment you could have made? And so what the training gives you is more flexibility, 5 different doors that you can enter if the first one doesn't work.
Right. Right.
Okay, so that's kind of the 7th secret that I'm giving away right now.
Well, we appreciate you giving us this information, and just in general. I mean, do you find that companies come to you and want to do this just for a particular department, or do you find that they like to go across departments so that others can learn
It's a
this
great
too?
question. Sometimes people don't even know what they're asking for. I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. A while ago, a large basic research company, let's Lawrence Livermore.
Hmm.
Okay, so the country was not at war, so you can figure out when that was. And they called a colleague of mine and said they were looking for presentation skills. And she couldn't go, so I took the meeting. I was living in near Silicon Valley at the time. And so there were this bunch of physicists, who looked like you would expect, wearing cardigans with leather elbow patches.
Sure.
And they said, we want like presentation skills. And I said, well, like, what do you mean? Who are you presenting to? And they said, well, one guy said, well, more like lobbying skills.
Hmm.
And so it turned out that they needed to present their expertise to companies in the private sector to get people to use their services of basic
Okay.
research. But they didn't even really have a name for it. And so I listened patiently. And then I said, oh, like, do you mean influence skills? They said, yeah, that's what we need. So it started at first with the kind of a modest, we did do the influence program for their team. And then it turned out that other people within the system heard about it. And so they requested that we come and do a program for them as well.
Okay.
So I hope that answers, people feel a particular pain
Right.
because they're not getting the results they want, maybe in a certain department. But then if we dig a little deeper, we find that other groups might benefit from this as well.
Right, right, right. Well, I think this is there's so much here to unpack even further. I wish we had you for a couple of hours,
All right, I
but
wish too.
I really appreciate the time. Let's talk a little more about when companies call you up and they bring you in, just like you were referring to. What are their options? They sometimes you're right. They don't know what the issue really is, but what are the options? Is it you offer a 1 day on site? I know that,
Mhm.
and then the modules, but how does, is one different than the other? I mean, how do
A
they
little
both work
bit
the same
different,
way?
a little different.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've just instituted with the e-learning program is that there's a module, an option where if a company does hire us for a one-day program, then they can also acquire lifetime access to the e-learning program as a support, as a buttress for
Okay.
the people who have attended the one day. So
Great.
it's kind of like a lifetime tutor, if you
Yeah.
will. The other thing now is that we can customize the program, and there are a couple different levels of customization, either in person. So we need to do research and get case studies from within the company, or we can customize the e-learning modules.
Right.
And as I say, there are a couple different levels. One of them is might be as simple as just having the company's logo on the modules, or having one intro module where the CEO is introducing why this program is necessary for the company. Right. So they're different, or we might have cases that are specifically relevant for that company. And as I mentioned to you earlier in our chat, the we have individual, what I call influence partners
Okay.
in various geographic areas. So, there was a time not that many years ago when I had to fly to Delhi to do a one-day program, right, for executives. Well, now I am probably going to have what I call an influence partner for India.
Oh,
So this person runs his own business consulting company, and they will be adding the influence program to their bag of offerings.
okay.
So my job is to teach him how to teach the program,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I have people, I have, as I mentioned, one person in Mexico and Latin America, also a small consulting company, which will be translating our one-day program into Spanish much better than me coming down there and doing it, really,
Right. Right. Right.
because he's a known entity with his clients. I have a few ladies in Kentucky who are doing the same thing. Now, one other option, which you asked about, is that we can do the one-day program for the company, and then the company can purchase a license. And so they may have trainers in company.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so I will do it's usually a 2 or 2.5 day, train the trainer with so basically their internal trainers are becoming licensed representatives, and then they can teach their own classes of, let's say, 20 or 25 people at a time.
Great. Right.
Right. So there's that option as well. And it's much more cost effective and much more practical,
Yeah.
having their own people teach their program.
Right. Well,
And it's, better for me, so I don't have to fly there 20
yeah.
times.
I mean, let me ask you, because I have a feeling, because we have a lot of consultants that are listening right now,
Mm-hmm.
probably asking the question, is there room for us, right? Is there room for me to call up Elena and say, hey, I'd like to add this to my consulting program or my portfolio? Is that something you're entertaining now, that you can bring more
Absolutely.
on? Okay.
So it, depends where you are,
Ah,
because some
okay.
regions are taken.
Yep.
And so, yes, absolutely. I'm happy to talk to, I guess the qualities would be, a lot of people have asked me, if you have any extra overflow of business in, wherever, would you hire me? And you need to create, there is no overflow, right? I mean, you need to sell, get those bums in the chairs.
Yep.
And so I would say one of the qualifications is you need to be able to have influence skills to get people in a room.
Yep.
And then you need to have the training skills, and I can teach you that. I'm not sure that I can teach you, how to get a client. But if you're running a consulting entity, I'm going to assume you're already good at that. And you might already have clients that are using you for something. And as I mentioned to you earlier, Steve, for example, one of our influence partners, they're teaching strategic planning to their clients.
Right.
And so it's kind of an easy plus to introduce your clients to this other skill set.
Great. That's great. All right. Well,
Okay.
I'll
So the
tell
way
you.
they can reach me is easy for you at easyinfluence.com.
Okay. Perfect. I was going to ask how they get in touch with you, but that's great. I'm glad you're reading my mind here today too.
I hope so.
Your website is easyinfluence.com, and that's
Exactly.
where they
And
can
people
find
can,
the course too.
Yes. So people can view the description of the basic influence course,
Good.
which is the live course.
Yep.
And then there's a section called Who Should Attend.
Okay.
So you can see whether your audience is within that group. You may want to gather some other entrepreneurs to do the course. So the best place to start is go to the website, and then you can go under the tab that says e-learning.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a page called Become an Influence Winner. I don't know if you can see that, but that is the description. And I'll put the link in the show notes, that I'm going to send you.
Yep.
And then I have a freebie for people.
Okay.
And it's called 5 Influence Hacks. And these are just, my fun success stories.
Excellent.
Would I share the failure stories? Yes. So, but they're not in this. So
Perfect.
it's an e-booklet called 5 Influence Hacks. And that will be in a link that I'm going to share with you once we finish this.
Great.
Steve.
Perfect. And we'll put all those in the show notes, the link to your website and to your e-learning course, as well as the free booklet, the 5 Influence Hacks. Elena, this has been so great for me.
Oh, one other thing, by the way.
Sure.
As Sherlock Holmes would say, people could go to my page on LinkedIn as well and look at the blog. Well, the blog is actually on the website. So you can go there, and there are a lot of good content, good articles. And if you go to my LinkedIn profile, under my articles and posts, there are a lot of good informational posts there.
And that poll that you did?
And the poll.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us today. This has been wonderful. I can't tell you how thrilled I was that you agreed to be on the show.
Thank you. It's fun. I wish my throat held up longer.
That's all right. We're doing well. So thank you very much. Well, everybody, that's another episode of the Science of CX. I hope you've enjoyed the content today as much as I have. And Elena Zucker has just been an absolute gem and very generous with her expertise
thank you,
and her
Steve,
knowledge.
For your great questions. And, someone needs to have a good expertise and experience in business to know what questions to ask. So I consider it a conversation, and I just enjoyed it all.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you. And until we meet again, please stay safe, stay healthy, and do take care, everyone. Bye bye.